Welcome back to Midweek Connections. This is our new segment where we are getting to know members of our congregation, starting with folks who live far away or who are newer members, so that we can all get to know each other a little bit better. Today, I am here with Adam Frieberg. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So the first question we've been asking everyone is just to tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can interpret that however you want.
Hi, my name's Adam. I like long walks on the beach. No, not really. So my name's Adam Frieberg. I moved to Indianapolis fairly recently. It's actually during the pandemic, but it's still been over a year. So it's kind of new. My wife and I decided, my wife is Heidi Haverkamp, so you may see her occasionally at church with me. But we decided about 3 months into the pandemic, when there was no end in sight, that we wanted to go move and be near friends. Yeah. And we had a core group of friends in the Indianapolis area, so we moved here. So that's me. There's a lot about me. One of the things is people often can't figure out what I do. I'm multivocational, okay. So it's weird because I'm an ordained disciples minister. I also do computer programming and data science work. Specifically, it's for Premier Crop Systems, but what I do is I work with agricultural GIS information to make farms more efficient. So that's one thing. I also am a photographer, so I do a lot of photography. I also am a PhD student. So I am working on a PhD at Northern Illinois University in the Department of Geographic and Atmospheric Sciences. And my dissertations, I'm in the dissertation phase and the data collection phase, but what I'm working on is looking at mainline church consolidation historically. So it's a lot.
So what I'm hearing is that you have lots of free time and you just like to devote to your hobbies.
Absolutely.
Well, that is super, super interesting. I think that, one thing I'm learning, I think, in seminary right now is that so many people are multivocational, and I keep saying that there are very few like typical seminary students at CTS, and so maybe we can rethink calling those folks typical, since there's not very many of them anymore. But you moved here to Indianapolis. Where were you before that?
So since 2006, I had lived in the Chicagoland area. Okay. So we were in DeKalb, Illinois, where my graduate program was. But for almost 15 years, we were in Chicago.
Okay. Well, I really like the visual I get hearing about you moving to be closer to friends, especially during the pandemic where everything feels extremely isolating. So I'm really glad that you guys were able to make that change for yourselves. It's really exciting.
It was very nerve-wracking, especially even packing boxes. It's like, oh, how do we keep everything safe? How do we keep us safe? But it was good.
Yeah, that's great. So now that you're here, what was it that drew you to Central? It is really hard to search for a new church. It's especially hard to search during a pandemic when there is no normal. Central was one of the ones that I'd worshiped at online and worshiped at several. One of the things, Central's worship felt comfortable, community felt comfortable for what I knew about it. I'd only been here once before, in person, before the pandemic. But the main reason that I kind of latched on was when I discovered how many people I already knew who were also going here, but then also how many clergy were here. It just taught me that it was a very healthy place and a healthy system. When clergy are willing to worship at a congregation, and more importantly, when church staff are able to lead with clergy worshiping in the congregation, that's actually that's a sign of health, both among the staff and the system. So it felt very safe. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Well, we're super glad that you're here. And if, for our final question, if you could bring someone along to our healthy system, any fictional character, who would it be that you would kind of bring in with you, and why? Okay, so I was working on this question when I got it via email, and I was trying to think, like, would Tony Stark fit in at Central Christian Church? I went in Marvel Cinematic Universe, kind of went through all the characters, didn't really land on one, which was surprising. Wow. So the character that I think I would want to expose to Central and make Central kind of realize that this person existed is, thank you for saying fictional, because that's helpful. So about 11 years ago, this author named Justin Cronin wrote a book called The Passage. Okay. And he wrote a trilogy of books. It became a trilogy. And basically, it's a global pandemic, might sound familiar, where in this case, the government was dealing with bats and weaponizing and created a vampire virus. Okay. And it turns out that a six-year-old girl was the one who saved the world. And so it's a phenomenal story. It goes through depths of place, but also depths of humanity. And almost the whole world gets decimated, so it's actually very tragic, but then it rebuilds, so that's also cool. But there's a character in there named Peter Jackson. Okay. So he is the one who befriends the 6-year-old girl 100 years later. So he's never known the world, and they call it before virus. Okay. And so he knows about shopping malls because that's where they get supplies from, and he's in this remnant that survives. But I just would want him to know that there's this place of safety, this place where you can be yourself, where you don't have to distrust strangers, don't have to worry. It's not, this place that's welcome, and that's Central, in a nutshell. So that's part of why, and also thinking about that context in the midst of a pandemic is really, it's just eye-opening. Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we would have appreciated Tony Stark's tithing ability, but sure. Peter Jackson does sound very exciting and a really good fit for us. So that sounds really exciting, and I, for one, really love post-apocalyptic fiction. My answer to this question is also a character from a post-apocalyptic book, but now I would really love to read this one. So Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you very much for coming in today. So be sure to tune in next week as we interview a new member of the congregation. Thank you so much for watching.